Tonight, 16 persons killed in separate attacks on communities in 2 local government areas of Plateau State. Residents say invasion is an attempt at land grabbing. Residents of Gauraka community in Tafa local government area of Niger State blocked the Abuja-Kaduna highway in protest over continued kidnappings in the area. The president says decision by southern governors banning open grazing is of questionable legality, approves action plan for grazing reserves rehabilitation. Lagos and Ogun State governments sign MOU on Joint Development Commission. And over 200 people injured as 2 trains collide in the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur. Plus business, sports, news from Abuja, and later international news from our London studio. It's a new week, and reports of attacks by suspected herdsmen and bandits have again taken center stage, beginning from Plateau State, where over 16 persons were killed in separate attacks on 2 local government areas. Residents of Gauraka community in Niger State also staged a protest to demand the end to incessant kidnappings by gunmen. Residents say at least 50 persons have been killed in the last 2 months. Down south, the story is not any different, with the police making clarifications over yesterday's attack on the head office of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Okah, Anambra State. But tonight, we started from Jos, the Plateau State capital, where 2 local government areas, Jos North and Riom, have been thrown into mourning after 16 persons were killed by suspected herdsmen in 2 separate attacks. The attack in Dong village in Jos North happened about 8 p.m. Sunday night, with villagers reporting that they heard sporadic gunshots as they were retiring for the day. A similar attack was carried out in Riom local government area after the gunmen invaded Kui village, leaving another 8 people dead and 1 person injured.
2 separate attacks executed with same methodology by suspected herdsmen were carried out simultaneously in different communities of Jos North and Riom local government areas of Plateau State. Residents of Dong village, a suburb of Jos North local government area, were subjected to sporadic gunshots on Sunday evening from the assailants, and that lasted far into the night, at the end of which 8 persons lost their lives.
In the evening, my wife went to her place.
One of the affected persons is a visually impaired man and an undergraduate student of the University of Jos who lost his wife and 2 children to the unfortunate incident, while a clergy expresses disappointment on the inability to secure the corpse of a member for burial.
I heard a gunshot. She responded to me, but for her to come in, the Fulani people have covered them, and they have killed them now.
Okay, if the dead body shouldn't be moved, why were the shells, bullet shells on the ground removed? How does that help the investigation? You have dead bodies with bullet wounds. You don't have any bullet so that you can use to plot the trajectory and everything. We are in a modern world. We are not illiterates. We know global practices on policing. We know global practices on what you do at the crime scene. Why were the bullet shells removed?
The same scenario played out in Kui village, just few meters to the Yakubu Gowon airport, where 4 males and 4 females were also killed by the attackers, and another sustaining injuries from machete cuts in what was described as unprovoked attack.
We do not actually know the reason for this attack, because this community has not done anything with the Fulani that Warang was killed. And I think an attempt to take over more communities is the reason why they are persisting on this kind of attack.
Reacting to the development, the Plateau State government expressed dismay at the attacks, which it says is capable of affecting the gains recorded in peace-building efforts in the state.
Whoever that has the responsibility of making sure that investigation is done and arrests made, and perpetrators will be taken to book. They will face the law and the consequences of the law thereafter. But above all, the state government, the state governor is very, very saddened because this is taking our peace efforts, which we have built all this while, so many steps backward.
Meanwhile, the Plateau State Police Command and of Operation Safe Haven have deployed personnel to the affected areas to forestall further breakdown of law and order and any reprisal from the communities.
And in Niger State, which is over 116 kilometers from Plateau, residents of Gauraka community in Tafa local government area have staged a protest over the incessant cases of kidnapping in the area. The protesters blocked the Abuja-Kaduna highway today, setting tires on fire and causing heavy gridlock. They claim that at least 50 persons have been abducted from the community in the last 2 months, with 3 persons reportedly killed. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Located about 5 kilometers from the Federal Capital Territory, Gauraka community used to be peaceful, but today it's in turmoil, with insecurity on the rise in the area. From a distance, smoke is seen billowing into the sky, signaling that all is not well in the area. What started as a minor protest has suddenly degenerated into a major protest, with the Abuja-Kaduna highway shut down. And the reason for this protest, according to the people of Gauraka, is the fact that they can no longer sleep with their eyes closed, and it's becoming a worrisome situation. The frustration here is palpable, just as the fear for their lives.
Last 2 months, they came to Gauraka and they kidnapped people precisely in Angombaro, almost 9 people. They paid 1.5 million naira. After that, we think everything is okay because we see patrol vehicle come to Gauraka and check whether everything will be calm. Then, day before yesterday, they came to Angomboko and kidnapped more than 6 people or 7 people. And they are demanding 16 votes, and they are demanding for 50 million. Every budget of Nigeria is half of the money is on the security. Where is the security? We can't sleep. Imagine the people that have car, they can't bring car to their house.
They have come to my area, and the Marinas, at Chaza here. They have come 10 times and carry people in Nigeria. Can you imagine that kind of thing?
Vehicular movement is obstructed as the protesters burn tires on the highway. There is neither security personnel nor government officials at hand to address the protesters.
It's government that shoots to us. Police shoot one guy this morning again. Is it the police that guarding us? Is the police that still shooting us?
Please, we are begging the government. I don't have anybody to rescue my sister. Please, government should come and rescue them. Please, we are begging the government.
Undeterred, the protesters seem determined to be heard by those they say have the responsibility of protecting their lives and property. They hope that this protest will bring to fore their concern and that the government will rise to the occasion of ensuring that they are safe and secure in their own homes. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Moving down south in Anambra State, police authorities have been reacting to the recent attack on the B Division headquarters in Okah, the state capital, clarifying that no casualty was recorded on the side of the police. Meanwhile, the state resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Nwachukwu Orji, said that the collection office of the Independent National Electoral Commission and 6 of its vehicles have been set ablaze by hoodlums.
It appears attacks on police and INEC offices are yet to end, as armed men on Sunday night again invaded the B Division headquarters of the police and an office of the electoral agency in Okah, the Anambra State capital. These recovered vehicles and firearms speak volumes of the police effort in repelling the attack.
Not to plead within the Anambra that God is with us, that they should go about their normal businesses, normal duties, as far as they are law-abiding, and endeavor to keep security agencies abreast of developments or anything suspicious they see in their various areas.
At the INEC office, a collection center which houses electoral materials, power generating sets and other vehicles were set ablaze.
One space where we use as our collection center that was damaged, and then a part of our store that were affected. These are the 2 places. We are still assessing the damage.
Did they do it?
Governor Willie Obiano is at the scene of the incident to see for himself and commends the security operatives for their bravery.
I am very happy and very proud of yourselves. You know, please, this kind of bravery is what we want everywhere. You know, come out and do the needful, what you're supposed to do as a police officer. You know, and so that civilians will know that police is their friend too. You know, this is not the time to dodge or be afraid or anything. Be gallant.
The State Police Command calls for calm and assures residents of its commitment to securing lives and properties in the state.
The president is taking some action to end the recurring crisis between farmers and herders, and he says he's committed to ending the conflicts and to ensuring that a sustained and lasting solution is proffered to the problem of killer herdsmen. Part of specific measures approved by President Muhammadu Buhari today is to adopt the recommendations of a report by the Minister of Agriculture, Alhaji Sabo Nanono, which the president signed off in April before the actions of the Southern Governors Forum, which placed a ban on open grazing. The president said in a statement by his media aide that it is very clear that there was no solution offered from the resolutions of the governors to the herder-farmer clashes. He adds that citizens of the southern states, and indeed citizens of all states of Nigeria, have a right to expect their elected leaders and representatives to find answers to challenges of governance and rights, and not to wash their hands off hard choices, but instead issuing bans that say, no, not in my state. The statement reads in part, it is equally true that their announcement is of questionable legality given the constitutional right of all Nigerians to enjoy the same rights and freedoms within every one of our 36 states and FCT regardless of the state of their birth or residence. The president has therefore commissioned and approved an actionable plan of rehabilitating grazing reserves in the states, starting with those that are truly committed to the solution and compliance with stated requirements, with veterinary clinics, water points for animals, and facilities for herders and their families, including schooling. Though through these rehabilitated reserves, the federal government is making far-reaching and practical changes, allowing for different communities to coexist, supporting farmers to till their fields, herders to rear their livestock, and Nigerians everywhere to be safe. In part two, after the break, a 3-day post-interment prayer for the Chief of Army Staff and other officers who died in the Kaduna plane crash last week begins in Abuja. Stay with us. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. 16 people killed in separate attacks on communities in 2 local government areas of Plateau State. Residents say invasion is an attempt at land grabbing. Residents of Gauraka community in Tafa local government area of Niger State blocked the Abuja-Kaduna highway in protest over continued kidnappings in the area. The president says decision by southern governors banning open grazing is of questionable legality, approves action plan for grazing reserves rehabilitation. Lagos and Ogun state governments signed MOU on Joint Development Commission. And over 200 people injured as 2 trains collide in the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur. Representatives of the Nigerian Governors Forum, led by its chairman, Kayode Fayemi, paid a condolence visit to the president today over the tragic plane crash involving the Chief of Army Staff and 10 other military officers. President Buhari lamented the loss of the officers and the impact on national security.
This is a situation that only God knows when it will happen, and it happened. And it happened at a time when the security situation in the country is a fundamental issue. And to lose such a choice officers just increase our problems. But we know what we are in for, and we will continue to work hard and pray hard so that God will give us the power to appreciate and apply ourselves to the problems. The people who elected us, they know the promises we made within the time the circumstances under which we find ourselves. We will keep on trying. You know what we have promised within the time limitation and resources available, and we continue to do our best.
The first of a three-day post-interment prayer for the departed Chief of Army Staff and other officers who died with him in the ill-fated crash last Friday in Kaduna State has taken place at the Niger Barracks in Abuja. The prayer session was declared by the Defense Headquarters and was attended by wives of the fallen heroes and other family members. Senior military officers, the Attorney General of the Federation and Chairman of the Senate Committee on Army also attended.
Wives, family members and top government officials gather at the Flag House in Niger Barracks, Abuja, to commence a three-day prayer for the late Chief of Army Staff and other military officers who died in last Friday's plane crash in Kaduna State. The Director of Islamic Affairs at the Nigeria Army Headquarters leads the prayers, supplicating God on behalf of the fallen soldiers.
La ilaha illallah, subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun alal mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
A condolence register is also opened for the late Chief of Army Staff, and the national flag is flown at half-mast as mourners condole with the families of the departed military officers. It's a solemn occasion, but amidst all of this is the call from the Chief of Defense Staff for all not to be in despair.
I admonished every officer and personnel of the armed forces to take courage, to rise in faith, and I'd like every officer and personnel of the armed forces to remain steadfast, because that which we desire to achieve by way of protecting lives and properties of all Nigerians in line with our constitutional mandates will be achieved.
The three-day special prayers is an Islamic practice to supplicate Allah on behalf of the fallen heroes.
So, according to the teaching of Islam or custom and tradition, we gather here today to observe 3-day special supplication for them, seeking Allah's forgiveness for them and seeking Allah's guidance for the children they left behind. And we also pray to God Almighty Allah to grant them entrance into paradise. And we also use this opportunity to pray for the country, for everlasting peace and harmony among different religious groups and ethnic groups in this country.
Death of the former army chief and 10 other military officers is coming barely 3 months after some young officers lost their lives in a plane crash in Abuja in February this year.
The House of Representatives ad hoc committee on recovered loots is summoning the Accountant General, Attorney General of the Federation, the Governor of the Central Bank and the EFCC Chairman for failing to honor its invitation to an investigative hearing on recovered loots, movable and immovable assets from 2002 to 2020. Heads of the agencies have sent in representatives instead who were rejected by the committee. Terry Kumi, our correspondent, reports.
The House of Representatives is investigating the recovered loots, movable and immovable assets by federal government agencies from 2002 to 2020. In declaring the event open, Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is represented by the Deputy Majority Leader, worries about the lack of trust between Nigerians and the government on recovered loots.
The commitment to fight and eradicate corruption from Nigeria is significantly undermined if the Nigerian people do not have the confidence that those who have the responsibility for these assets will use them to the national benefit.
As the hearing gets underway, lawmakers observe that the heads of the agencies are absent.
When we have a preparation, when we invite head of agencies, they come forward when it's time to take. But when it's time to account for what you're taking, you find it difficult to come. You become bigger than even the country. I think that's unacceptable to this parliament.
And it's disturbing to the committee that the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps has no records of its recovered loots.
The letter you wrote to us is that you do not have an inventory, that NCDC does not keep inventory of recovered assets. That's irresponsible. It just doesn't give any indication that you know what you're doing. So please, we will excuse you now. Go back and get us that income inventory.
Meanwhile, the committee questions the operator of the assets recovery account from the Office of the Accountant General on why some transactions are not reflected in the statement of account obtained from the central bank.
There's so many other situations in which you claim that fund has been deposited and CBN statement contradicts yours.
We normally attach the statement of account of CBN. Wherever we give this confirmation, we always and every time attach a statement of that bank statement.
You wrote yourself that a certain amount of money was generated from sale of assets, and it was supposed to be in a particular account. The money is not there.
It is there.
So
it is there.
I'll show you the statement of account. Can you show us the date?
That we gave you, and it is the statement of account is there.
Why is there a difference between your statement and the one from CBN?
The committee resolves to summon the Accountant General, Attorney General of the Federation, Governor of the Central Bank, the EFCC Chairman, and other heads of agencies who failed to attend the hearing. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The governors of Ogun and Lagos states have formally signed a memorandum of understanding on a joint development commission for socio-economic development of the two sister states, first of its kind in the country. At a ceremony held at the Presidential Lodge in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, the two leaders promised to ensure the workability and sustainability of the developmental agenda framework.
The idea of a mega city development between Lagos and Ogun was mooted by former President Olusegun Obasanjo during his administration, but the efforts did not yield the expected results. Today's event is expected to see Lagos and Ogun seal the deal with the signing of the policy document.
Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu and the Governor of the Gateway State, Ogun State, Prince Dapo Abiodun, MFR. Shall we put it together for the two excellencies? Thank you very much.
The Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, sets the ball rolling, highlighting critical areas of collaboration.
We're expecting that the memorandum will look at areas of trade and investment, will look at resolving boundary issues, will enhance and ensure that security and intelligence gathering and sharing becomes part of us. We'll look at issues around environmental and fiscal planning activity.
The Ogun State Governor, Dapo Abiodun, who is hosting the meeting, is seeking the support of the private sector and the necessary political will to ensure the success and sustainability of the Development Commission.
The official launch of this commission today will further initiate and accelerate more projects necessary to aid ease of movement of our people, goods and services, as well as increase industrialization along our border communities, and ensure a wholesome development of our both states. Therefore, I call on the private sector to support and collaborate with the two governments in this success story of the Ogun-Lagos Joint Development Commission.
It is our belief.
They signed the agreement that will foster greater relationships, drive economic activities, infrastructural, and urban renewal. The Ogun State Governor wraps up the meeting with a special presentation. He says the plaque is a constant reminder of what they share.
The three districts in green, red, and blue, the west, the central, and the east. But without knowing that, we had also produced
the map of Lagos State, which is underneath.
The signing of this joint economic development strategy is expected to ensure a more robust and mutual development with residents of the two states as their ultimate beneficiaries.
When the news at 10 returns, Deputy Senate President assures the Senate will pass the Constitution alteration bills before proceeding on recess in July this year. Plus, the federal government begins move to improve procedures and regulations in developing solid minerals sector. We'll have more in business news. Join us again. Welcome back. Time to move to Abuja now, where Linda Kigbe is standing by with more on the news at 10. Hi, Linda. Great to see you.
Hello, Amarachi. Great to see you too. The Deputy Senate President, Senator Okah, is assuring that the Senate will pass the Constitution alteration bills before it proceeds on annual recess by July this year. Senator Okah made this remark during a press conference at the National Assembly ahead of a zonal public hearing on the alteration of the Constitution scheduled for May the 26th and 27th. He says the committee received over 250 memoranda from Nigerians along 13 thematic areas and is asking those yet to submit memoranda to use the opportunity of the zonal public hearing to do so.
Brothers, we're working on a timetable. Time is no longer on our side. Nigerians who are clamoring for this expect that we come up with a finished product in no time. And the calendar we've set for ourselves is that we're going to have a vote on each of the bills, before we go on the July recess. I'm not so sure of that date yet, but before we proceed on the long recess, the votes will be taken on these now 16 thematic areas.
Meanwhile, Professor of Law and Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Isheshage, has asked for an adoption of the 1963 Republican Constitution to replace the existing one that has been criticized as flawed. The senior advocate believes the present constitution is not federal but unitary in its orientation, and only changing it can save Nigeria from the structural trouble it currently faces. Professor Sage was a guest on the political program Politics Today.
My own personal preference is that we should scrap this constitution and adopt the 1963 Republican Constitution. That constitution contains everything that is being agitated for now. If we had that, if we adopted it, with amendments here and there to make it accommodate states rather than regions which we used to have, I think all these agitations will die down and everybody will be happy. If we can have a process which will begin towards having a new constitution, it will be better. Until we have it, we can manage with what the National Assembly is doing, but certainly it is far from satisfactory, but may result in an improvement in what we have now. But what we really need is a clear departure from what we have. What we have now is a unitary constitution parading itself as a federal constitution. As Chief Williams said long ago, it's a constitution that's telling a lie about itself at so many levels. And one of them is that it says it's a federal constitution. It's not a federal constitution. It's a unitary constitution.
Outside Nigeria, a Pretoria High Court in South Africa today granted ex-leader of the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta men, Henry Okah, leave to appeal a 2019 judgment against his application requesting that his detention be declared unlawful. The court had on the 20th of December 2019 dismissed with cost Henry Okah's application challenging his trial and conviction on 13 counts of terrorism-related activities. Like his earlier litigation at the Johannesburg High Court last Tuesday, Mr. Okah came to court representing himself.
In the application of Henry Okah against the state and 6 others, the applicant, who referred to himself as a prisoner of war in line with Section 8, Article 5 of the Geneva Convention, says the courts erred in not determining his status as such. He says it was his right for the court to determine the lawfulness or otherwise of his detention because he was empowered to, in his words, tamper with the earlier ruling of the Johannesburg High Court, declare his detention unlawful and order his immediate release, since he had brought a habeas corpus application before it based on Section 35 of the South African Constitution. In his submission for the state, Advocate Chris McAdams said that granting the applicant leave to appeal will amount to an abuse of the legal process because a motions court cannot set aside the ruling of a high court. On behalf of the third respondent, the Minister of Police, Advocate T.P. Kruger agreed that the applicant had no valid points and was simply abusing the legal processes. He prayed the judge to dismiss the application with costs. Judge Moses Mavundla noted to the applicant that the issues and defenses being raised by the applicant now should have been raised at the point of first appearance before a magistrate's court from the onset. He, however, granted the applicant leave to appeal, quote, in the interest of justice. With COVID-induced backlogs in the court case rolls, it's still a long way to the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein, but the applicant says he is quite excited at his little victory.
I'm coming out to build, and I'm taking off my mask for a special shot for people in Nigeria.
From the North Gauteng High Court, Pretoria, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
That's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Hello and welcome to Business News. The federal government is working on improving procedures, documentation and regulations in the solid minerals sector. This is in order to track and recover revenues lost from mining exports. According to the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, the mineral guidelines will enable the federal government put in place pre-shipment processes and help increase revenue accruing to states. The chairman of Seplat Petroleum Development Company PLC, Mr. Ojiako, says that the board has received the approval of shareholders for a name change to Seplat Energy. Speaking during its hybrid 8th annual general meeting in Lagos, Mr. Ojiako adds that Seplat seeks to be more involved in promoting low-carbon environment in its operations.
Requirements of the Companies and Private Matters Act.
It's Seplat's hybrid 8th annual general meeting with auditors, regulators, company directors, the media, amongst other stakeholders joining here physically and virtually.
I do hereby confirm that we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Meetings of this nature have some procedures, so as soon as the notices of the meeting is read, it is business proper.
Only press the ABS button if you do not wish to vote on a resolution.
More than 20 resolutions are up for adoption by shareholders or returned unopposed, including a change of name for the company from Seplat Petroleum Development Company PLC to Seplat Energy. And here is why.
In providing energy solution in a transition world, it means that apart from producing liquid hydrocarbon, one of the things we said we'll do was to commercialize our gas. We've achieved that. The ANU gas project, if you put that side by side with the Shell-owned gas project in that same zone, it is indeed one of the biggest investments in the oil industry in Nigeria. And we're happy to be proud a part of that. So going forward, we provide these solutions, not just in money making, but making sure that we're fully aligned with all the climate change narrative.
We continue to delever even in difficult situations. Okay, and that really speaks to what Seplat's all about, which is managing risk and getting ready for the better times ahead. And we're starting to see that now.
The year 2020 has ended 31st December was a challenging year for businesses. Seplat says it pulled through and well enough. The company's cash position remains strong in the full year of 2020 with $318 million of cash generated from operations and $150 million invested for future growth.
The retiring auditor shall be reappointed without passing a resolution.
A new dividend policy has been approved. Every quarter, Seplat shareholders will be paid dividends.
The easiest way to speak about it is time value of money. and cash flow. If you are a shareholder who receives dividend, the same amount once in a year, when you have high inflation, your ability to purchase will be much reduced.
Seplat provides about 33% of gas to power and says it will continue to invest heavily in expanding its domestic gas business in line with federal government's strategy to achieve universal access to electricity and to make energy cheaper and cleaner by replacing diesel generation.
And there's no relief yet at the local equities market. The bearish run is still on at the close of trades today. Layo Adegoke has the details.
Thank you for joining us for the stock market report. Well, there's still no respite from the downturn which dominated 5 consecutive sessions at the local equities market last week, and that's because sell pressure has found its way into the final trading week of the month. The benchmark index of the NGX dropped further by 0.10% at the close of today's trading session, which translates to about 19 billion naira loss in the market's total value. And this is attributed to the decline in the share price of some key banking, consumer goods and insurance sector stocks. However, this loss was moderated by the gains from 3 other sectors of listed equities, as investors are still trading equities with caution amid macroeconomic uncertainties, despite the positive first quarter GDP report. At the same time, the volume of equities traded in the start of the week remains thin and lower by about 30 million units against Friday's turnover, as 141.14 million shares changed hands in over 3,500 transactions, and were mostly driven by the shares of UAC Properties, FBN Holdings and CHAMS. Now, with all eyes now focused on the final outcome of the CBN Monetary Policy Committee's meeting on Tuesday, traders say they expect that the MPC's decision will dictate the next direction that the market will take for the rest of the month. That's it on the stock market report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Back to you, Marachi.
Welcome back. A metro train carrying 213 passengers has collided with an empty one in a tunnel near the Petronas Tower in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, injuring more than 200 people, 47 of them in serious condition. The empty train had just been repaired and was going in the opposite direction on the same track as the full one. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Western countries have condemned Belarus for diverting a plane flying over its territory to arrest a Belarusian opposition journalist. EU leaders have discussed their response to what the Union's executive called a hijacking, and the US State Department said was a shocking act. Belarus scrambled a fighter jet to force the plane, which was bound for Lithuania, to land in Belarus, claiming a bomb threat. Police came and took Roman Protasevich away when passengers disembarked. Witnesses said the activist told fellow passengers he would face the death penalty. State media in Belarus said President Alexander Lukashenko had personally given the order for the move. The incident drew sharp condemnation from across the European Union. Italy has launched an investigation into the cause of a cable car accident that left 14 people dead. The car plunged 20 meters into the side of the Motorone mountain near Lake Maggiore in northern Italy. 13 people died at the scene, including a 2-year-old child. 2 other children, aged 9 and 5, were airlifted to hospital in Turin, but the older child later died. On Monday, the crumpled remains of the cable car were sealed off, and technicians prepared to examine the wreckage. Prosecutors in Milan said they had opened an investigation into involuntary homicide and negligence. Myanmar's former leader Aung San Suu Kyi has appeared in court for the first time since her government was overthrown by the military in February. During a 30-minute meeting with her legal team, she said she had no access to newspapers during her detention and was only partially aware of what was happening outside. The former leader faces several charges, including violation of state secrets law. She's been held under house arrest for 16 weeks since she was deposed. Residents in the Democratic Republic of Congo have returned to destroyed houses after a large volcano erupted, with many searching for missing loved ones. Mount Nyiragongo turned the sky red and spewed out a river of lava on Saturday, but stopped short of Goma, a city of 2 million just south of the volcano. At least 15 deaths have been confirmed, but the number is likely to rise as officials reach the hardest hit areas. More than 170 children are feared to be missing and 150 others have been separated from their families, that's according to UNICEF, which said centres would be set up to help unaccompanied minors. The number of deaths linked to COVID-19 in India has moved past the 300,000 mark as the country continues to grapple with the pandemic. Experts warn that the real number of fatalities might be much higher, as many deaths are not officially recorded. India has registered 26 million cases, second only to the US, and is now the epicenter of the global pandemic. The country is also the third in the world to record more than 300,000 deaths, behind the US and Brazil. The Wall Street Journal has reported that 3 researchers from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology sought hospital care in November 2019, months before China broke news of the new disease. The newspaper cited a previously undisclosed US intelligence report which said that the symptoms of the researchers were consistent with COVID-19. In response to the article, China's foreign ministry called the news hype from the US and accused it of trying to divert attention. Beijing reiterated that the WHO team investigating the pandemic's origins said a lab leak was extremely unlikely. Japan has kicked off a mass vaccination program in Tokyo and Osaka with the aim of vaccinating as many people as possible before the beginning of the Olympic Games. The military has set up centres offering thousands of shots each day, prioritising the elderly. The country's vaccination drive started late and was hampered by supply shortages and organisational hurdles. Japan's efficient healthcare system has been increasingly overwhelmed by the latest surge, with some hospitals running out of beds and ventilators. Large parts of Japan are currently under a state of emergency. And finally, rowers have taken part in one of the most beloved regattas in Venice, the Vogalonga. Usually there would be rowers from every corner of the world, but of course the pandemic this year means most were made up exclusively of Italians. The return this year of the regatta is extra special as the city is celebrating the 1,600th anniversary of its foundation. The 30-kilometre event was created in 1974 to raise awareness of the problems of waves afflicting the lagoon city. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Super Eagles coach Gernot Rohr has pruned his 31-man provisional squad list to 24 players ahead of the friendly against 5-time African champions Cameroon in Austria on Friday next week. The list includes players such as Maduka Okoye and Francis Uzor in goal, in midfield Ogenekaro, Etebo and Wilfred Ndidi, and those forwards with the likes of Ahmed Musa, Victor Sime and Kelechi Iheanacho. Squad captain Sergio Ramos has been left out of the Spain squad for the Euro 2020. The Real Madrid FC centre-back won the last of his 180 caps in March, but has endured an injury-plagued season, while Man City's Aymeric Laporte was included after FIFA approved his switch from France to Spain earlier this month. That sports news is back to you, Marach.
Thanks, Ayatunde. And the main news again, 16 persons were killed in separate attacks on communities in 2 local government areas of Plateau State today. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.